Hey y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today we're going to learn a fun one. We're going to learn how to make a really delicious burger. So let's get started. First things first, I have a pack of 85-15 hamburger meat. This is something that I would say you only want to use 85-15 or greater in the fat department for this, and 15 is your fat quantity. So the number that you want to look for on your pack of meat is 85-15 or 80-20. Those are typically the easiest ones to find, and fat equals flavor in your burger. So you don't want to go incredibly lean with your burger meat out of the gate, because even though it has that much fat in it, as it cooks, some of your fat will fall away, but the fat is actually what makes a juicy and flavorful burger because it keeps some moisture in there, and the fat, as it melts, actually bastes your meat in flavor. So that's a good tip. 80-20, 85-15, those are the things you want to look for in the burger department, because you just need that fat. If you go a step further, they do sell like 73-27, and that's your meat to fat ratio again. That's a little fattier than what I prefer. Simply stated, that just leaves room for a lot of burger shrinkage, number one, and a lot of fat drippage, which if I was cooking it on a grill would make a big flare out. So 80-20 or 85-15 is what I do for my burger fat ratio. Okay, so I've got a pound of meat here. We're going to make about 3 burgers out of this size, because I go somewhere between half and 2/3 of a pound per patty, and then that's where we get our perfectly portioned size, because we plan our size first. So I've got my pound right here, and I'm going to split it before I even mold it into 3 almost even sections. That way you don't end up with like this really dinky burger at the end and everybody else is big and plump and juicy. So we're splitting our meat into even places before we even patty it out. That helps us. While that's happening, I'm going to get some heat on my pan so it's really good and nice and hot. A burger wants a sear, so that brown food tastes good thing on the outside is perfect every time. So next thing, I'm going to grab a plate so we can patty our burgers out. Our burgers are going to be cooked in a cast iron skillet, and I love to do that when the weather isn't perfect, or if I'm just in a situation where I don't have access to my grill, because cast iron gives a really great crust. The good thing about a burger when you cook it inside in a cast iron skillet is you're not going to miss that wonderful hard sear that you would get from a grill, because the cast iron gives that really high heat, and it helps mimic that same sear on the outside. So as I form my patties, I'm not going to overwork my meat. That's all I am doing to form my patty. That little, probably 15 to 20 seconds. I put it in a circle, and that's about it. The next thing I'm going to do, may be a little bit shocking, but don't skip this. I'm going to take my thumb, or you can take a big finger, and I'm going to put a hole in the middle of this. Not a whole hole, but like a big divot or a dent. The reason I'm doing that is because when the heat hits this, it's going to plump up in the middle. And if you don't have a little dent right there, you're going to end up with more of a meatball shape than a flat burger patty. So it won't sit well on your bun, and it's not going to hold your condiments and toppings as good. See how helpful that is to have those already the patties already sort of measured out inside the meat? It's just really a helpful trick. If you wanted to, you could take, instead of just doing your dent after you've formed it, you can take your thumbs, put them in the middle of your patty, and just kind of push in and go around, and you're putting your dent in while you're shaping your meat. Okay, last patty. So my ratio typically is about 3 patties per pound of meat. So if I want 6 burgers, I buy about 2 pounds of meat, and so on. That's a good way to find out what you need at the grocery store before you get home and start making your patties. All right. Just like that, 3 patties made. So I'm going to wash my hands and get this in the garbage really quickly. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to season our meat. Now our meat is not going to lose any of its seasoning on the grill. So I'm going to put a little heavy on one side and just kind of let it crust on the other. So it's really, really good and seared where that seasoning is. when you put seasoning on and you put it on the grill, some of your seasonings can fall through. That's what we're missing out here. So we're going to make a really good seasoned crust on our burger. So I'm going with some seasoning salt on this first side. And then I'm going to go in with some grill seasoning. Now, grill seasoning or steak seasoning has a lot of different things in it. It's a one-stop shop for anything meat or vegetable. It is garlic, it is herbs, it is onion, it's salt and pepper. You name it in the spice department, top 10 things are probably in a grill seasoning. All right, I've got a little bit of smoke coming up off of my pan here. You can see it's nice and hot. These have 15% fat, so I don't need a ton of oil in my pan. I am going to give it just a little tiny bit so we don't have any stickage out of the gate, and then we're going to get our burgers in immediately. Season side down. And like I said, when you hit the grill with a seasoned patty, sometimes the seasoning falls through. You're not going to lose your seasoning here. So we want to season just the right amount. Another tip for that is, if you're not weirded out about touching your meat, you can actually press your seasonings in. But some people just don't want to touch it once it's dirty. That's obviously not a problem for me. So I'm going to push those seasonings in since I've got it in my hand one more time. See? And even if your burger kind of falls apart just a tiny bit going in the pan, you can form it back together, and then the heat will make a crust that will hold it in the pan. The forming of the burger is going to be one of the things that keeps it tender if you don't spend a lot of time on it. A lot of worked meat can end up just really tough and dried out. Okay, I'm going to wipe my hands off. I love the sound that makes. It just smells delicious and sounds delicious too. All right. Now, while this is here, we're going to go ahead and season the side that's up. And you can probably hear the sizzle. Yeah, it's going to be delicious. Now, when you sear a burger on high heat like this, you're going to cook it about 2 to 3 minutes, that first side. You only flip a burger once. That is the biggest rule. I say that. There are 2 rules tied for the #1 rule of burger. You flip your burger once so you're not messing with it and the crust stays intact and as good as it gets, and you never press the burger. There are 2 kinds of hamburgers. There is a burger, and then there is a smash burger. That's not what we're doing here. Smash burger is something that's all about crust, all about layering of flavors. You want a lot of crustification, and you're not working with a lot of the flavor in the middle and that juicy patty thing. For a regular burger, we're not smashing and we're not flipping. We're just really getting the crust really good on the outside, first 2 or 3 minutes. Then we're going to flip it once, and we're going to let it do its things on the other side before we pull it and let it rest. So here we go. We're going to put our next bit of seasonings on here. I'm going to turn my heat just to a medium since it's really good and hot. And grab a spatula. And I'm going to look at my first side. Now, you want to be careful with a cast iron. Like I said last lesson that I used a cast iron skillet. These handles get hot. I know mine's not hot quite yet, but I'm going to go ahead and put this here to watch mine and be very careful. So we're going to just check the first side. And it looks so yummy. I'm going to get these flipped, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Come on in here. That is brown food, tastes good. Yeah, very good. I know what I'm eating for lunch. All right. Now that first side was very well seasoned, and you can see that crust that came from leaving it alone in the pan and those herbs and seasonings getting nice and crispified on the bottom. This is going to go for about 1 to 2 minutes on the second side because the second side doesn't take quite as long. And then we're going to get another plate, put our burgers on our plate, and then we're going to let them rest. Just like any other kind of meat, when something like this comes off the heat or the grill, you want the juices to have time to redistribute. Here's the science behind that. Hot food has molecules that are moving very quickly. When you let it rest, those molecules slow down, the juice remains inside the meat while you're eating it, and it gets juicy and delicious in every bite instead of immediately coming off heat, getting cut, then the juice falls out on your cutting board or on your plate. So if you're a little patient and you let your meat rest, you're going to have a better flavor. Okay, so we're back. Our burgers are done, so I'm going to take them out and they can rest. These are going to be about medium, so that means a little bit pink on the inside. We like ours medium to medium rare. My husband and my boys like it a little more on the medium rare side. My girls and I like a little more medium. It is what it is. So we're going to let our burgers rest. And if you're guessing this is time for cheese, then you would be right. I'm going to fix the one that I'm going to be eating for lunch today just how I like it. So if you're counting, right now is the beginning of rest time, about 30 seconds ago, I guess. So I'm going to top, I've got a good cheese blend here that I freshly grated. You want freshly grated cheese or sliced cheese here that's got that ooey gooey factor, a cheddar that's sliced, a freshly grated cheddar or Colby Jack. An American is always a go-to that's delicious. And it's old school, but there's nothing like it. So delicious cheese goes on right here because it's off the heat, so it's not going to melt all on your grate or in your pan, but it's got enough heat to get that cheese nice and melty. So we're going to cover this up. I'm going to get a little foil. And then after we do that, we're going to just let it rest, like I said, for a few minutes. My cheese went on so that could melt. We're just going to give it a minute. And when I get right back, we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, y'all, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's look at our burger and taste it. We have a melty cheese situation going on right here, and I can't wait to build this burger. So first things first, I'm going to take my nice warm bun and I'm going to add a little ketchup and mustard. This is the way that I love my burger if I'm going to do it exactly like I want it. When I'm craving a nice, I would call special occasion, extra frivolous burger. So I'm going to go on with my nice burger patty. It's so juicy. It is so juicy. And then I'm going to go mustard. Really, if I have my preference, I like chili cheeseburgers. Telling the truth. I love vegetables, don't get me wrong. But when I'm craving the burger that is just guilty pleasure situation, chili cheeseburger is where it's at. So some yellow mustard for me. I'll behave and do a little bit of lettuce. And then I'm going to go on with some onion. Honest to goodness, ideal burger for me. Toppings and all. Juicy patty, mustard, onions, cheese, chili and pickles. That's my true love burger. But this one's going to be very close. So I went on with some onions, and this is ready to taste. Maybe some bacon next time. All right, here we go. This is as big as my head. Pray for me. It's going to be delicious. I shouldn't have taken that big a bite, but it was so worth it. That crust on the burger is where it is at. There is nothing like a good crust on the outside of a burger. Let me show you how juicy this is. You see that moisture? There is nothing overcooked about that burger. Delicious. I'm going to finish my burger. You go make one for yourself. Happy cooking, y'all.